Ready to have a deeper conversation about body and soul, sacred leadership, and our collective evolution? Welcome to the Wise Body Ancient Soul podcast with me, your host, Charisse Sisou. Wondering if you're ready? Trust your path, and here's why. We hold so much wisdom in the body. One of the things that I experienced visiting the Philippines, which is where my mother's side of the family is from, is that my connection with my ancestral land, that happened 100% through this vessel of the body, right? It was 100% transmitted through my body. Eating the foods, eating the fruit picked from the trees there, feeling the earth under my feet. The Carole King song is in my head right now. I felt the earth move under my feet, but seriously, it was like even the color of the earth, this like rich red earth, the smells, cracking open a mangosteen for the first time. I didn't even know what they looked like. I'd like heard the word. I knew how to spell it, but I couldn't even tell you what it tasted like or what it looked like. And then I saw this, exotic, gorgeous fruit at the market, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that's a mangosteen." I was like, "Must have." And it's incredible. It's like this thick shell, and then you cut into that, and inside are these wedges, like orange wedges, but instead of those little, segments within the segments, there are these solid, translucent pieces of fruit. And it's just astonishing and amazing. And the bottom line was, it had everything to do with this like visceral, physical experience, including meeting like whole tribes of people to whom I was related. And I'm not joking about that. Like my mom's hometown, it felt like every single person that I met, I was related to. Like they were a cousin, or a cousin once removed, or a cousin on my, on my grandfather's side, or what have you. Like the mayor is my cousin. Okay. So it was wild. I've never experienced that level of familial ties or rootedness in anywhere that I've lived. I'm biracial. I'm half Filipino, half European, German, and Danish on my dad's side, and so even there in the Philippines, I didn't 100% belong. If you were to ask my relatives, even though I'm meeting them and like we're clearly related, they would tell you I'm white. But because of where I am in my journey, I knew heading over there that I was being called to heal some intergenerational stuff. I knew my ancestors were guiding my steps. It's why this trip had seemingly materialized out of nowhere, and just had appeared, in my path. And what I wanted to say, and really the point of this episode, is it hasn't always been that way. And I got the idea for this topic really because I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts, Medicine Stories, and the host was talking about, did she and her guest were kind of talking about this idea of ancestral work, visiting those ancestral lands. And she confessed in passing, wondering, had she been ready or if the timing had been right? She'd gone with her daughter, who as a teen, like has her own needs and pulls on time. And, so she felt like her time wasn't 100% her own. The trip wasn't like every moment wasn't exactly what she wanted to do. And so she was kind of feeling this pang of regret, or, not regretting having gone, but just thinking like, oh, I'll definitely need to go back and, quote unquote, she didn't use this words, but the essence was like, go back and do it right this time, go back and do it consciously this time. And I really wanted to speak to that piece of when we go back and we look at something and we're asking ourselves like, Were we ready? I'm going to move my thing around here so I can actually see my next point, because I will talk for an hour before getting to my next point if I don't have some kind of reminder. So listening to her talk about her experience, I really resonated with that. I've had those same feelings. You know what I mean? Like, had I known then what I know now, could that experience have been different? Could I have done even more healing? Like, what if I hadn't also been dealing with whatever drama was going on in my life, right? In short, like, was I ready? Could it have been better? Could I have been better in that experience? And just like when I was listening to that podcast and I wanted to kind of like reach through my earbuds and say, like, yes, your timing is perfect and elegant. It happened exactly the way it was meant to happen, right? You are and were right on time. And I say this to reassure and also remind myself, because these thoughts come up all the time, right? Trust your path and your body's guidance to show up wherever and whenever you get that call. Okay? I'm going to say that again because it's that important. Trust your path and your body's guidance to show up wherever and whenever you get that call. Because guess what? Whether you're conscious of it or not, your ancestors did guide you there. Okay? And, or your own soul beckoning to you from a prior lifetime, right? The messages came to you through an instinct, a feeling to go. And you heeded that call. And maybe you weren't consciously engaged at that time or don't feel ready now. And what I got so strongly on my trip to my motherland, right, as I scooped and ate the most exquisite papaya or sections of mangosteen, or heard my relatives' laughter, or saw 1,000,001 sights that read home to my DNA, it was that you don't always have to know or be consciously engaged in, and now I am healing my ancestral line, or I am aware that I am uploading codes and downloading information and healing my bloodline, because that's all well and good. And it's all, yes, it is awesome to be like super aware of that. And we don't have to be, because it happens in the alchemy of our bodies, in the alchemy of your body, simply by being you and heeding your soul's call. Just trust that. Trust yourself. I repeat that for me. Trust yourself, Charisse. Trust that the moment that you're called is the moment that you're 100% ready. Because there's so much that happens behind the scenes underneath it all that we may or may not be aware of, right? Our ancestors' dreams and wisdom passed down through blood and bone, our own soul's mandate as we came into the body. We're not always aware at the moment when we're fulfilling a soul contract or learning a lesson we aim to learn before coming into the body. So a great example from my own life, I studied French in high school. Actually, I think I started in grade school, and there was a foreign exchange program that was offered and paid for by the school. And of course I signed up. I was 15 years old, and it just sounded amazing, right? It would be decades before I recalled my lifetimes in the south of France, where the sacred feminine was revered for thousands of years. Generations of priestesses, sisters, and initiates lived and died there, and I was one of them, more than once. And that realization didn't come in really vividly for me until just a few years ago, and that is a story for another episode. And yet there I was, called to the south of France at age 15, with all my insecurities and issues and yeah, like, let's just say I was not tuned in at all to past lives or ancestral whatever. I was just like deep in my painful experience as an adolescent, like wrestling with depression and anxiety. And here I was. So I'm on this exchange program. We spend a week in Paris, and then we spend 3 weeks with a host family. And my host family was in Lourdes, of all places. Now, Lourdes is famous for its healing waters and connection with the Holy Mother. If you happen to have been raised Catholic, you might be familiar with it. You might even have a little vial of holy water from this place, but I was not raised terribly religious, and so I had no idea of the significance of this place. And guess what? I was the only person on the program that was called to that village, no other, right? Literally millions of people make pilgrimages to this town for the sacred grotto that is there, and the healing waters, right? So I was aware of none of this. And yet I was still called there, right? I was the only student there. I started speaking the language like I was born there. Like, I came back with this really strong Southern French accent that kind of blew my class away, right? And what I can tell you is there were so many things that still needed to be healed yet in my young body at that age, right? For one thing, I was so shy. Like, this was one of the ways that my anxiety played out. I just got there and I was like, what am I doing here? And who are these people? And I remember arriving at the home of my French family and being shown to my room, and I didn't want to come back out. Like, I literally made this sign, like with my little ballpoint pen. I just like scribbled out this sign that said bonne nuit, and somehow I put it on the door. I don't know how I did this, or maybe I don't know, maybe I tinted it and put it on a little thing in the hallway outside my door. Anyway, I figured out some way, because I'm like, where did I get tape? Like, I just have this, all I know is I didn't even say, hey guys, good night. I'm feeling really tired. I'm just going to go to bed. You know what I mean? Which would have been so adulty, right? I was like, eek! And I got in there and I did not want to come out. So I made this sign and I was like, bonne nuit. And I stuck it on my door, and I did not come out of my room until morning. And in hindsight, I'm like, oh my God, I know that they had this like meal planned for me, that they were like, who is this girl that we're sharing our home with for the next 3 weeks? Like, looking forward to meeting me and getting to know me. And it's just like, oh God, like, how socially awkward. And who knows what was going through their heads. But anyway, in spite of all of that, right, the seeds were planted. Information was being uploaded and downloaded. In fact, this experience helped pave the way for my later remembering those earlier lifetimes, right? It helped prepare me for later downloads when I got that kind of full on tears gushing down the cheeks, like visceral remembering of being a part of that sisterhood. So I just wanted to put this out there because just trust your path, trust your body. Just trust it. Trust where your body takes you. When you're called to go to Glastonbury or the Philippines or the Black Hills of South Dakota or wherever, even though maybe it isn't under the circumstances you might prefer, trust the call. There are no accidents. In fact, that argument you might have had on your trip, let's say with your daughter, right, may have been part of an ancestral healing that needed to happen, right? You may have been processing echoes of the past, healing or bringing forward knowledge or wisdom, right? What you'll find is, looking back, you'll go, oh, that's why I was there, you know? It's like, at the time, I had no connection with the sacred feminine. Like, I didn't even know she was a thing. You know what I mean? All of my learnings had been strictly within the sort of like Judeo-Christian tradition, and and pretty light with that, because I think my mom, when she came here, really in a way wanted to start clean slate. And so we weren't like huge churchgoers. So and even if I had been, that just would have like further alienated me from Divine Mother, right? So all that to say, like, it was only in hindsight that it was like, oh my gosh, of course. That's where I was called. Of course, I was there physically in person, right? My body interacting with this environment that my soul knew so well. As you progress down the path, the pieces will fall into place. Why a particular place, at a particular age, under those exact circumstances? So you might be thinking, oh my gosh, I was called there when I was 21. I was so not ready to do the work. And yet you were probably called there at age 21, me there at age 15, because something momentous happened to an ancestor or in a past life at that age. There never is any accident. So trust that there is always a part of you that knows who you are and the whys and wherefores behind what is happening at any given moment. That part resides in your beautiful, sacred body. And as you learn to trust that instrument of your soul, that physical focus of your soul, that temple of your soul, as you learn to trust your body, it just makes things so much easier and the journey that much richer. So, happy travels. From my heart to yours, I love you. Take what you need and pass it on. Mwah. Thanks for joining me on Wise Body, Ancient Soul. I hope it reminds you how powerful and magical you truly are. If you're looking to connect more deeply with the wisdom your body and soul carry, it would be my honor to guide you. Check out my website to learn how else we can play together. And if you feel so moved, kindly subscribe, rate, and review this podcast so more juicy light bringers like you can hear these transmissions. Here's to your joy and wild success. From my heart to yours, I love you. Take what you need and pass it on.